What should I pick? Bleed, no bleed? Regardless of what genre you're self-publishing books in, you're going to have to deal with book bleed. So, if book bleed has you seeing red, then stick around for this bleed versus no bleed video. Hey Right Riders, Keith Wheeler here, and if you want to continue to get all the hints, tips, and tricks on how to make self-publishing easier, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and smash your little bell icon so you get alerted each and every time I put out a new video. I'm going to answer the 4 most common questions that I get when it comes to book bleed. But the first one is, what is bleed? When book bleed, whether it's on your cover or on your interior, it's the area along the edges of your book where the print-on-demand company is going to cut your book. So if you want your images to go all the way to the edge, that's called bleed, and you don't want a white border around it. So you need to account for that extra area just in case, because be honest, when they cut it, because it's print on demand and they're printing them one by one, the cutting process unfortunately is not as precise as we'd like it to be. So you have the bleed go all the way to the edge so that way when they cut it, even if they're a little off by a centimeter or so, the image is still going to be intact and it's still going to go to the edge of the book. Here's some examples of book bleed. Here's the interior of my children's book, Mimi's Adventure. The image goes all the way to the edge of the page. It has book bleed. Now on the other hand, over here, we have a page from one of my books, My Buddy Knows Letters. As you can see, there is intentionally a white border around it. So I chose no bleed for that particular book. What about cover bleed versus interior bleed? The mathematics behind it is the same. The difference is not all books are going to have book bleed on the interior of their book. Every book has to have book bleed on the cover. So when you're doing your cover, you need to make sure that you include that margin, that bleed, that 0.125 all the way around, top, bottom, left, and right to account for the book bleed. So in what cases and what types of books should I use book bleed and which ones should I not? Well, a lot of it's going to depend on your particular book, especially if you're doing something like a picture book. As I've showed you, some of my picture books have bleed, some do not. The main thing is if you want your images to go all the way to the edges, then you need to pick bleed and you need to account for that extra space. Now, other examples besides picture books where you may want book bleed is if you're doing no content, low content, or puzzle books and you want an image, some kind of background, a border maybe, on your interior, so therefore you're going to want to put the book bleed so your borders go all the way to the edges of your pages like they're supposed to. What are some instances where you definitely wouldn't want? Majority of the time, if you're doing any kind of nonfiction book, any kind of novels and that kind of stuff, typically those will not have book bleed. One area that's kind of a gray area, and it's really up to you as a creator, is if you're doing line journals. I've seen some journals where the lines go all the way to the edges, therefore that would be with bleed, and then I've seen others where it just goes to a certain area and there's that white space around it, and of course that would be no bleed. So how do I calculate book bleed? Well, the good news is there's not some huge mathematical equation you have to memorize, okay? All you have to do is remember 0.125. That's it. That's all you got to remember. So when it comes to your cover, you're going to put 0.125 to the top, to the bottom, to the left, and the right of your book cover. Now, when it comes to your interior, it's a little bit trickier than that, but not much. You're going to put 0.125 inches to the top, 0.125 inches to the bottom, and then 0.125 inches to the outside border. What that means is for the left-handed pages, 0.125 inches will be put on the left-hand side, and for the right-handed pages, 0.125 will be put on the right-hand side. Basically, the opposite side of your gutter. That way, when they cut your book, again, if they cut a little bit off, it's still going to go all the way to the edge of your page. So I have a question for you. Which do you use more frequently, bleed or no bleed? Or maybe you do a mixture of the two. Let me know down in the comments. I spoke a little bit about no content, low content books a few minutes ago, and one low content or no content book category that's really starting to blow up right now are puzzle books. I just started an entire Saturday series on puzzle books. If you'd like to check that out, head on right over here and you can check out the entire playlist. Or you can check out this video right here that YouTube thinks you're going to love. I'll see you in the next video, and remember to write right.